We're going to look at how we can use complex numbers on the calculator and how to check quadratic equations that may have complex solutions. So the first thing we need to do is find out how to set up our calculator. Let's hit the on button to turn it on and then go to mode. I've written this down at the bottom of the page, and then go down to real, and you can see that next to real is the normal mode where you're using real numbers, is A plus BI. We're going to move over to A plus BI and hit enter. And now when we work with problems, we can enter complex numbers and we can also get them as answers. So let's do a problem. Oh, we need to know where I is. I, the imaginary number, is over the decimal point on the bottom row, and it is on the left, and it's color-coded to the second key so that we can get it by hitting the second key first. If we hit quit, which is above mode, we can get out of this screen, and let's just see what happens with I. Hit second and then I and hit enter, and of course it gives you I. Alright, let's do the first problem, which is I to the 48th power. Second and the decimal point key, and then raise to the 48th power and hit enter. Now, I want you to see this because you got to realize there's a real and a complex part here. I'm going to put this up. The real part is I. It's 1, excuse me, it's 1. And then it has a minus 2 times 10 to the negative 13 power times I. And that's the imaginary part. For calculator purposes, a number like 2 to the negative 13th power is essentially 0. And so the answer here is 1. And sometimes 0 shows up like that on the calculator. I've seen it working in other modules, and I've seen it all through the years. So if you see something like that and you're not expecting it, it's a very tiny fraction since it has a negative power there, and it's a pretty high power. Alright, so you're not expecting it, and it is essentially 0. Alright, let's look at the next value. Open parentheses, 4 minus 2I, and we're going to square it, and we'll get our answer. And this time we get 12 minus 16I. So we're able to check a problem like that. And then let's do the last problem, which is 3 minus 6I over 7 plus 2I, and you see I'm putting parentheses around the numerator and denominator because if I don't, it won't follow the order of operations correctly. It will only divide the last thing entered, 6I, by the 7, not the entire numerator by the entire denominator. Alright, and so let's go ahead and enter that in the calculator now. Open parentheses, 3 minus 6I, close parentheses, divided by, open parentheses, 7 plus 2I. And you notice I'm not doing any handwork on this. So, and then hit enter. Now, that's a pretty horrendous looking decimal, but it needn't be because decimals are often horrendous on the calculator. Let's go to the math key, math 1, and change this to fraction form. And it looks like it is a complex number, and the fractions, while not beautiful, aren't that bad. And it's 9/53 in the real part of the number, and negative 48/53 pi, not pi, I, in the imaginary part of the number. Okay, so you can check your work, but remember, when you're doing an assignment or taking a test, you have to show all your steps. All right, next we're going to be looking at checking some quadratic equations. The quadratic equations in this chapter may or may not have complex solutions. This one, which I solved beforehand, appears to have no complex solutions. And let's review how you check an equation. You take the value of the answer and substitute it where the x or the variable is in the left side and then in the right side, and see if the resulting values of the left side and right side are equal. Well, we're going to do this using complex sentences on the calculator. Let's clear it first, and then we'll enter the x value, the first x value here, and I want to go ahead and put a parentheses around that numerator, and I'll go ahead and put it around the other one too, since when we do enter it, we're going to need that parentheses. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is enter the x value that I'm going to check. And the first x value is negative 20 plus the square root of 415, close the parentheses. Now that parentheses was to end the square root. I still have to close the parentheses for the numerator. And then I hit divided by 5. 5 does not need a parentheses. And then I hit store, and I'm going to store this as x. Now I'm going to make a compound statement here. I'm going to also put the left side in here, and this is so that if I have to go back and change the value of x, I don't have to go back so many lines. So I'm storing this value as x, and I'm going to calculate the left side. The way I do that is I put a colon between them. The colon is above the decimal point on the right side. So I hit alpha and then colon, and you see it was entered there. And then I'm going to hit the left side of the equation, 5x squared, and it will evaluate that. And that's what it gives me as a value. And now I hit the right side of the equation, 3 minus 40x, and I hit enter. And if both sides are the same, that tells me that that first value that I put in, negative 20 plus the square root of 415, all divided by 5, is a solution of the equation, and indeed it is. Now, if I were to write this on my paper, I might say on my check, maybe underneath those values I could put that 0.028 equals 0.028. I rounded it off. I'll put approximately, and because they did come out okay, so that one checked. Now let's check the other one. Now all I have to do here is change to a minus sign between the 20 and the square root, and I can reprint that. I can edit by pulling up that equation that's or that line that was 2 lines back. To do that, you hit second enter to get the first line back, and then second enter again to get the second line back, and you can see there's where I stored the value of x and then hit the left side. Alright, well, I'm just going to take the cursor up to that plus that's between 20 and the square root sign and change it to a minus. And this happens a lot with these problems where you're using the quadratic formula, the only difference between the two solutions often being a plus or minus in front of the square root symbol. So now it's a minus, and I'm going to hit enter, and I get a different value, 325.97, which I'll put down for my left side. And I'm just rounding it off to a few decimal places. And if I get that same value for the right side, I'll be happy. Okay, and then I'm going to hit second enter again, and I'll hit it twice so that I get back to that previous line, which was the right side, 3 minus 40x, or I could have just entered 3 minus 40x again, and then hit enter, and it does give me the same value on the left and right side. So I'm able to check that. And this problem did not involve it didn't involve complex numbers at all. All right, let's check another quadratic equation, and this one has two complex roots, or appears to have two complex roots. Let's clear the calculator first, and let's store the value of the first complex root. And we do not need parentheses around numerators or denominators here because there are single numbers in all locations. All right, so let's go 1 divided by 4 plus the square root of 31. Now I do need a parentheses to end the square root symbol here. Divided by 4i. And let's store that as the value of x, which is our variable. And then hit the colon to put in the left side of the equation. Up. I'm sorry, I used the second key instead of the alpha for the colon. I backed up, and I'm getting it there. Okay, so watch what you do. And then let's put the left side in, which is 2x squared minus x plus 4. And evaluate it. And since the right side's 0, we'll be really happy if it just comes to 0. Remember what I said about zeros. Okay, enter. It came to 0. Sometimes 0 looks like 0, and sometimes it looks like a very high negative power of some number. All right, so that looked okay. And now we really don't need the other side, so when we put on our check, when we put the first value in, we got 0 is 0. Left side equals the right side 0. And then we want to just do the second value. So let's hit second enter to print that line, and just go up and change that minus in front of the square root of 31, that plus to a minus, and then hit enter. And if we get 0, we're happy. 0 equals 0. So both of these are solutions and make the equation evaluate as 0 equals 0.